Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy, undoubtedly one of the best superhero trilogies of all time, this trilogy brought new life into the superhero genre. With the disaster of a movie that was Batman and Robin,
7 million.
Alright, everyone, chill.
The trilogy as a whole made about $2.5 billion, making it a huge success in the early 2000s. The original Spider-Man from 2002 was a fantastic superhero movie and brought the superhero genre back into the limelight. Then 2 years later, the sequel came out, Spider-Man 2, which was even better than the first one, expanding on the struggles of being Spider-Man, and Alfred Molina being Doc Ock was a really cool thing to see. But then, in 2007, Spider-Man 3 came out, and let's just say it wasn't as favored as the other two.
With much beloved characters that Stan Lee created, and people really hold him so dear to them that you don't want to mess up. And I messed up plenty with the third Spider-Man. So people, hated me for years. They still hate me.
They give you shit for that
all the time. Yeah.
Why? What do they say?
We hate you.
So Spider-Man 3 had a pretty troubled production. In the middle of writing the movie, the studio asked Sam Raimi to add fan favorite villain Venom into the movie. Because of this, Raimi kind of shoehorned him into the movie and tried his best to fit him in the movie, but kind of seemed a little rushed. Raimi's original plan for the movie was to have Sandman as the main villain and Harry Osborn as a secondary villain. The lack of creative control Raimi had on the movie kind of had an effect on its production, and also the movie took a lot of money to make, around $250 million, and it was the most expensive movie at the time of its release. So, in the beginning of the movie, we open to him narrating, as he does. He talks about how great his life is. And even in the very beginning of the movie, we see how his ego is already starting to affect him at the very beginning of this movie. After this, he goes to Mary Jane's play. As he walks out, he makes his way over to Aunt May's apartment, and he tells her he's going to ask Mary Jane to marry him. She gives him a ring Uncle Ben gave her, and he tells him this. But then, after that, he gets attacked by Harry, who then immediately gets destroyed by Peter. Ooh! Ooh! Then we, then we get this plot point where he loses his memory. Which I can admit is kind of dumb. But then we get one of the best scenes in the entire movie. Sandman's origin story. Which is probably one of the most creative and meaningful scenes I have seen. No audio, just music. All it is showing emotion and its effects, which look fantastic, even today. And it shows how his rise, his motivations, when he grabs the necklace, looks at it, knows what he wants, and he rises up, he molds his body, and he's ready to take on the world. Then the next scene, we see Spider-Man saving Gwen Stacy, and here we meet Eddie Brock. In my personal opinion, I think Topher Grace gets way too much crap for this performance. I think he's the perfect opposite to Peter, and I like him as Eddie Brock. But as Venom, well, we'll get to that later. Then Mary Jane comes in talking about her bad review, and Peter's like, you know what? Don't freaking worry about the critics, man. Just don't listen to the haters. And Mary Jane's like, shut the fuck up, Peter. No one cares. Spider-Man is freaking... my life's harder than you, okay? Later in the movie, we see the parade for Spider-Man, and then he just kisses a random girl in front of MJ. Then he thinks, you know what, this is the perfect time to start proposing to her. But he doesn't really get to do that, because Mary Jane's still kind of pissed about him kissing someone. To be fair to Peter, though, Mary Jane, you've cheated on Peter in this whole trilogy about 50 times. First with Harry, then with Spider-Man, then with the freaking Peter, and then on the astronaut guy, you cheated with Peter again, and now you're cheating on Harry as we speak. Anyways, he figures out that Sandman murdered his uncle, and he kind of gets pissed. Then the symbiote takes a hold of him, and he becomes Bully Maguire, and he looks so cool. This suit looks awesome, and I will stand by that. And you know what's that? I gotta freaking kill this guy. And he freaking, you know what? He just freaking murders him. And you know what he thinks? He's like, yeah, I'm gonna brag about this, killing this guy, you know. Yo, Aunt May, Spider-Man kind of just brutally murdered this guy.
But Peter, Spider-Man doesn't murder people.
Oh shit, you're right. But then Harry decides, oh yeah, I'm evil. And he tells Peter that Mary Jane likes him more. And he does not let the side and beats the hell out of him.
Hey, bro, watch your jet. Watch your jet, bro. Watch your jet!
Okay, here we go. I know that the emo Peter Parker stuff is weird and unusual, but like, come on guys, it's Peter Parker. He's a dork. This is how he's gonna act if he thinks he's tough shit. But also in this movie, we also get more of the serious side of Peter Parker. I mean, when he gets on the suit, there's some examples here, like, you know, he freaking murdered Sandman, he freaking blew up freaking Harry's face, he, you know, yelled at the rent guy, you know, we got some stuff in here that shows his, you know, his personality other ways that isn't weird. After this, he decides to even be a more dick and harasses MJ at a job, and then he freaking smacks the crap out of her. But this scene right here shows the moment of realization on what he has become. And then we get this.
Who are you?
I don't know.
After this, we get one of the coolest scenes in the movie when he takes off the suit. The cinematography is perfect, and then Venom is born. Here we go. This is one of my other favorite scenes. When Peter talks to Aunt May, and how he's feeling his regret, and how he feels like he broke his promise to her, and, you know, he doesn't feel like he's right to give the ring, you know. And then Aunt May tells him this.
I hurt her, Aunt May. I don't know what to do.
You start by doing the hardest thing. You forgive yourself.
I really like this scene. It really shows the overall theme of forgiveness in the story. And it just, you know, shows how, you know, you gotta forgive yourself sometimes. Even when you mess up, you can't harp on yourself. You gotta forgive yourself. And I really like that part in this movie. It really shows the, you know, the overall themes in the movie. And it turns out, you know, really good. Sandman and Venom team up and kidnap Mary Jane. Peter seeing this on the news, he finally goes on to put on his suit. And the greatest part about this scene is that this is the first time in this whole movie where the Spider-Man theme plays. This whole time, it hasn't played once. The only time it plays is when he finally realizes not to focus on himself. Then he goes to ask Harry for help. And Harry isn't too happy to see him. He's like, you know what? F you, bro. You freaking blew up my face. I hate you right now. And Peter doesn't argue with him. He nods his head and he's like, you know, I get it. I hurt you. So he just goes to do it on his own. And then he tries to go fight and he gets his butt kicked and all hope seems lost. Everything, he's losing his energy. He's about to die. And then Harry comes in and saves his butt. He finally forgives him. After what the butler told him, the random butler guy, he's there. He's like, you know what? Spider-Man didn't kill your dad. And he forgives him. And they team up. And freaking one of the coolest team-up scenes. It's so freaking cool. They're fighting Venom and Sandman, you know. They're swinging, they're throwing punches. They're Harry's hoverboard. He's throwing bombs and stuff like that. And then Venom finally corners Spider-Man. And he's, you know, getting trapped. And Eddie is about to kill him. And then Harry sacrifices himself and mirrors the way how Norman Osborn died in the first movie. He gets impaled by his own glider. Peter's reaction to this, he starts off silent and he's staring at him, and you kind of see the shock in his eyes, and he's all quiet. And then after, you know, Venom throws him off, he screams with the most important freaking, one of the best freaking Toby screams in the trilogy. I'll play it right here. And I just love that scene so much. It shows, you know, the freaking shock and despair of losing his best friend. Then we get the best scene in the whole movie, in my opinion, and really shows how great this movie is Sandman and Peter talking. After, you know, they're about defeated, Sandman's like, you know what, bro, I didn't want this. I didn't mean for this to happen. You know, my daughter's sick, you know. And he talks about how his situation with Uncle Ben, how Uncle Ben was just trying to help him, and he made a mistake and, you know, shot him, and he regrets it to this day. And He isn't asking Peter for forgive him. He just wants him to understand. And I really like that part in that movie. It really just shows, the kind of motive behind Sandman. And Peter's like, man, I've done some terrible things too. And he forgives him. He understands where he's coming from, and Sandman just slips away, and they cry over Harry. And then the next scene, we get Harry's funeral, and Peter's narrating, doing his thing, and he finally gets one dance with Mary Jane, and that's the end of the movie. Okay, so I know pokey jokes about the movie, but I want to get into my actual deep thoughts and opinions, because I haven't really explained why I think this movie is so good. I mostly just, made jokes about the movie as itself. But the reason I think this movie is really, really good is its character relationships and its theming. So, with its character relationships, I feel like the best 3 examples are Toby and Harry, Toby and MJ, and Toby and Aunt May. When I mean Toby, I mean Spider-Man. But, yeah, so I think the relationships between those 3 people it's probably the main, most core relationships in that. So let's just go through some of the character relationships I think are done really well. So with Mary Jane, I think this is the most, elaborate one in this movie. They're mostly focusing on, how, what he's become in the later parts of the movie. But I think that throughout this series, Mary Jane has been a complicated character, and, has done some questionable things, I would say. But I think in this movie specifically, I feel like we get to see more of her being more relatable, showing more her humanity, and her care for Peter, rather than the other ones. I feel like, we get to see her core character, and I feel like more her outbursts seem more genuine and more reasonable to be outburst about. Like, of course, when we get freaking hit, we're gonna be pissed off, or if your boyfriend's kissing some random girl, you're gonna get mad about that. But yeah, so I think in certain ways, she also brings the good out in Peter a lot in this movie. Like, after, Peter finds out Sandman murdered his uncle and he's all pissy, she comes in to check on him. And this was right after the fiasco at dinner, where she was getting mad at him for cheating on him, basically, with another girl. This was right after, and she jumps in and she asking, to check up on Peter, and, Peter kind of brushes her off, but she's like, you know what? Even Spider-Man needs help sometimes, and she understands it. And I feel like that's a really good scene to express their relationship. And also, towards the end of the movie with the final dance, I think it just shows the song that's playing is "I'll Never Fall in Love Again." And when she said, "I've never cared for no one," Peter walks in and she stops singing, showing that she's the one that cares for him the most, and that's the man she cares about the most. And they do their dance and stuff like that. And on Peter's side of the spectrum, we get to see how a lot of his actions in this movie of realization of what he's done wrong is through MJ. When he hits her, that's when he takes off the suit. When he goes to save her, that's the motivation for him to put back on the suit and start fighting again. And he thinks towards the end of the movie, he kind of puts her through. That's what it's her main objective is the woman he loves in this movie, and I think it's done really well with that relationship. Gives kind of Peter more, motivation and recognize of what he's become after the suit takes over. But yeah. Next we get Peter and Harry Osborn. Same with MJ. They've had even a more complicated relationship after, he gets kind of pissed off against Spider-Man because he thinks he killed his dad, and Peter's kind of connected to Spider-Man in more ways than one, more than he knows of. And he gets really pissed at him for still freaking just basically taking pictures of Spider-Man. He gets really pissed at him for that, and kind of getting a kerfuffle. And then towards the end of the movie, he figures out Peter is Spider-Man. And towards the beginning of this movie, they basically, Harry's only motivation is kill Spider-Man. We gotta kill him. We gotta avenge my father. It's over. Gotta kill this man. And yeah, I think the best part when it shines is towards the end when the butler, talks about Norman Osborn, and he goes to save Peter, and he sacrifices himself to help Peter. Even Peter says it's at the end of the movie that in his final moments he chose to be the best of himself and forgave Peter for what he did to him after he blew his face up and kind of had a hand in killing his dad. So I really like that part in the movie. But yeah, let's go on our final and most meaningful one, Peter and Aunt May. Peter and Aunt May, I think, is the most special and interesting dynamic we've had in this whole trilogy, and this is the best Aunt May. Yeah, she feels the most Aunt May-ish to me, she embodies that role. And throughout the trilogy, she's always been a caring and supportive person to Peter. And in my personal opinion, I think that Aunt May knows Peter Parker's Spider-Man in this trilogy. It just makes sense, So in the first one, the mother figure comforts Peter after Uncle Ben dies and stuff like that. And she tells him not to worry about her when she's in the hospital. And then in the second one, what she does is that when Peter tells her that he kind of had a hand in Uncle Ben's murder, she is a little shocked at first, like most people would be, but towards the latter half of the movie, when Peter comes to visit her, he seems like she kind of knows Peter is Spider-Man. She's talking about like, oh man, Spider-Man's gone, what are we gonna do? Peter, heroes, they give people motivation, they inspire people, and that part in particular gives Peter the motivation and to start being Spider-Man again. And then in the third one, I feel like this one is the most interesting. Aunt May in this movie is kind of like Peter's conscience, as in like the relationships. When he messes up, he goes talks to her, and like he gives the ring back to Aunt May after he feels like he messed up. And that part, I've already explained why I like that scene so much, and how she's like, you gotta forgive yourself, Peter. People mess up, and before you can start making things right, you gotta learn to forgive yourself, reflect on what you did, and better yourself. And throughout the movie, she's kind of like telling Peter, kind of like he thinks about Aunt May in the back of his head when he's making these decisions, and it kind of affects in the movie. If you watch it, you can kind of see that. But yeah, I think this movie does really well with the relationships. I kind of explained how it expands on the relationships in past movies to this one. I think that's a really good part of this movie, and it explains it. Some honorable mentions to the cool relationships is Sandman and Peter, towards the end of the movie, where he kind of lets his revenge go and forgives Sandman. It's really cool to see their kind of relationship. And in No Way Home, too, when the first scene, they're cool, when he thinks, it's Toby Spider-Man who's he meets when he first gets in that dimension. But yeah, I'm gonna go to my second favorite part about this movie is the theming. So the theming in this movie, I think, is done super duper well. The main theme, I've used this word multiple times in this video. Forgiveness. Learning to forgive yourself, others who have wronged you, and better yourself from your mistakes. And even when you can get that vendetta, that, you know, that little grudge on people when they've wronged you, you also gotta learn to forgive them. Peter forgiving Sandman, Harry forgiving Peter, MJ forgiving Peter, and everyone's just kind of forgiving each other after what they've done, because the suit in this movie is fueled by revenge, anger, and wanting to he's want to freaking get back at people who wronged him. He wants to get back at MJ for breaking up with him, he wants to get back at Sandman for murdering his uncle, and he wants to get back at Eddie Brock for stealing his job, basically. So you can kind of see how the revenge is fueling the suit, and he ends up, you know, bettering himself by the end of this movie, and I think it's done really super duper well, and kind of shows how, you know, you gotta better yourself, even when you've made mistakes. It's stuff like that. You can't harp on yourself so much for your mistakes. Yeah. As a side up to this, Venom is the exact opposite of Peter in this movie. As in, he takes his grudges and he puts them in the action. And even when he's given a chance to, you know, join the good side, he goes back to his old ways and ends up getting him killed. I think this is better shown in when he's just Eddie Brock. I want to expand on that because I told you I would expand on this earlier in the video. Topher Grace is really good at Eddie Brock. He's a good opposite to Peter in this movie, and kind of expands his traits, like the opposite of what Peter would be like. Like, he's not full-on black suit Spider-Man, but he's kind of in between. He's cocky, he doesn't care what other people think, you know, with Betty Brant and freaking stuff like that. He, you know, overpowers himself, he brags on himself a lot, like when talking to Jameson about the job, he's like, I'm your man, you know, freaking cinematography is so freaking good, he brags about himself a lot. And he does whatever he wants to get where he is, like framing the photo, and basically, that kind of gets him fired. And yeah, I think that part with Eddie Brock is really done. If they ended it there, maybe get a little conclusion with Eddie Brock. I think that would have been good. And they could have just ended there. But then when he becomes Venom, it's a little corny, not gonna lie. When he keeps peeling back his face over and over, like, pick one, man, pick one. He's like, hiya, Parker's spider senses are tingling. Like, so freaking cringy. I know it. I know this is a really bad part. But as Eddie Brock, he's really good. One thing I want to brag about this movie: cinematography. Sam Raimi is an absolute freaking mastermind when it comes to cinematography, bro. This movie looks amazing. From 2007, this looks freaking amazing, dude. Every shot looks like a wallpaper, bro. It looks so good. Especially the Sandman effects. Peak. It looks so good. And this is where these mostly spent their budget, I can tell. But yeah, it looks so good. It just freaking looks amazing. It just looks so cool. And the CGI, it's coming back from where we started. I think we did Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 1. CGI not like the best. But this movie, it looks so cool. Crisp. And they freaking, I feel like they expanded on what they could have worked on. For early 2000s, it's pretty good. Especially a lot of the Sandman scene, I want to brag on, with the expressions and just only music in that whole scene. And you can think about you can see what he's thinking about, even if he's not talking. And I think it's really well done. So, I'm gonna have to end the video here. I've explained why I think the theming and the character relationships make this an actual really good movie. If you take about all the goofy stuff, you know, I think it's pretty good. There's a lot of good parts I like in this movie, and I think you should give it a chance. If you haven't watched it in a while, I'd say give it a chance. Thank you for listening for telling me about my hot take. tell me what other stuff you want me to do, and here goes the outro.